They thought she was just a dishwasher, until the gang walked in, 6 men, 1 knife, and what happened next? Silenced an entire city. This isn't a story about revenge, it's about what happens when the quiet one finally fights back. They thought she was invisible, just a girl in the back of the kitchen, washing dishes, quiet, obedient, forgettable, but what they didn't know was that she had learned to survive by listening, and by sharpening more than just knives. Her name was Eva, not a fighter, not a soldier, not a hero, just a dishwasher at a greasy diner on the edge of town. The kind of place where people came to eat cheap and talk loud, where no one noticed the girl in the apron unless she dropped a plate. She had come to this town with nothing, no friends, no family, just a backpack, a pair of old shoes, and a memory of a life that used to be peaceful, before everything was taken from her, before they came. The gang called themselves the Iron Dogs, leather jackets, broken laws, and a reputation for making people disappear. They didn't care who you were, they cared only that you didn't get in their way. They walked into the diner that night like they owned the place, 6 of them, loud, drunk, dangerous, and they didn't come for the food. They came because they had unfinished business with someone in the back. Eva saw them the moment they walked in. Their boots hit the floor like gunshots, and the way they scanned the room, predators looking for prey, but instead of hiding, she stepped deeper into the kitchen and picked up a blade, not because she wanted to fight, but because she had finally reached the point where fear stopped making sense, and because tonight, something in her snapped. She wasn't just a dishwasher. She was a storm waiting for the right sky, and the moment they crossed that line, they gave her that sky. They walked past the waitresses, ignored the manager's nervous laugh, and pushed through the kitchen door like it belonged to them. "Hey," one of them growled, "we heard you been talking to cops." Eva didn't flinch, didn't blink. She looked him dead in the eye and said, "I haven't said a word, but maybe I should have." The room went silent. Even the fryer stopped hissing. He laughed, a cold, guttural laugh that echoed off the tile walls. "You think you're gonna rat us out? You think someone like you gets to walk away?" She didn't answer with words. She answered with motion. The knife in her hand wasn't fancy. It wasn't forged in fire or made for war, but it had been her silent companion for over a year. Every night, she cleaned it, balanced it, respected it. And now it danced. She didn't attack like a trained fighter. She moved like someone with purpose. Swift, focused, terrifying. The first man didn't even see it coming. One flick of her wrist and his hand dropped what he was holding. Blood blossomed. The others froze because this wasn't the story they expected. They expected a scared little girl, not a force of nature. She backed into a corner, eyes scanning, breath calm. This wasn't rage. It was clarity. Years of being stepped on, ignored, underestimated, now sharpened into resolve. One of the younger gang members stepped forward, trying to play hero. "Easy," he muttered, "just put the knife down." But Eva didn't lower her hand. Because she knew something they didn't. Sometimes silence is a lie. Sometimes doing nothing is how you lose everything. And sometimes you don't fight to win, you fight to finally be free. She moved again. Not recklessly, like a ghost in motion, the kind of precision that only comes from repetition in the shadows. The knife flashed. Another man stumbled back, arm bleeding. Suddenly, the fight wasn't fun for them anymore. Suddenly, the dishwasher was a threat. The kitchen, once full of smoke and chatter, now felt like a battlefield. Steam rose from pots like war fog. Spoons clattered to the floor like falling shell casings. And Eva stood in the middle of it all alone, but not afraid. Outside, customers began to sense something was wrong. Inside, the manager fumbled for a phone, and the gang, once so sure of themselves, began to hesitate. She didn't chase them. She didn't scream. She just stood there, blade steady, eyes burning with the fire of 100 buried nights. Because this moment wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about making them hurt. It was about making sure they never came back. About drawing a line in the sand so deep, even fear wouldn't dare cross it again. And in that moment, the world saw something rare, a woman with nothing left to lose, and everything left to protect. Eva didn't move, not because she was frozen, but because she didn't have to chase fear. Fear had already found them. The gang that once swaggered through the city like wolves had met a silence they didn't understand. A silence that stared back at them with steady hands and a blade that never trembled. They came expecting screams, weakness, retreat. What they found was a woman who had been quiet for far too long. One of them, the leader, stepped forward again, his lip curled, his ego bruised. "Put that thing down, girl," he growled, blood dripping from his man's hand behind him. "You don't know what kind of mistake you're making." But Eva just tilted her head. And with a voice that didn't rise, didn't shake, didn't beg, she said, "The only mistake was letting me live invisible this long." There was something about the way she said it. It wasn't a threat. It was a statement, a declaration that this was the end of pretending, because Eva had once believed that keeping her head down would keep her safe, that if she worked hard enough, stayed small enough, she might be left alone. But the world doesn't reward silence, it feeds off it, until one day, the quiet ones erupt not with chaos, but with precision. Another gang member lunged, brash, angry, trying to reclaim the dominance they'd walked in with. Eva spun. It wasn't choreography, it was instinct. The blade moved like it had always belonged in her hand. One slice across his thigh. He dropped, cursing, screaming. Now the room wasn't just tense. It was electric. The air felt heavier, as if time itself paused, unsure whether this was a dream or a war. By now the customers had fled. Someone had called the cops, but that didn't matter, because Eva wasn't waiting to be saved anymore. She had become her own rescue. The leader's jaw clenched. He knew if they didn't control the story now, they'd lose more than pride. He stepped closer, this time slower, hands raised, voice softer. "Look, we don't want this to go worse. Let's just walk away, no harm done." But that's where he was wrong. The harm was already done. Years of being ignored, talked over, looked through, cornered, silenced. That harm had roots so deep. This wasn't just about tonight. This was about every night she walked home watching her back. Every shift she worked while being catcalled, laughed at, dismissed. This was about reclaiming the part of her she thought was gone forever, her power. So she answered with what they feared most, silence. And stepped forward just once, one step. It said everything words never could. They backed up, even the leader, because the moment a woman stops fearing consequences is the moment the world fears her. Sirens echoed in the distance, blue and red lights flashing like judgment on the horizon. But Eva didn't blink, didn't lower the blade, because for the first time, she wasn't defending herself. She was defending her name. Her space, her story. The gang scrambled, limping, bleeding, and the kitchen door slammed behind them. When the cops burst in, they expected a scene of panic, but all they saw was one woman standing alone. In a quiet kitchen, holding a knife like it was made of truth, they raised their guns, confused. "Ma'am, put the weapon down." Eva looked at the blade, and for a moment, it wasn't a weapon, it was a mirror. She saw every version of herself in its reflection. The scared girl, the silent worker, the shadow behind the steam, and now, the warrior. She slowly placed the knife on the counter, raised her hands, and said the only thing that mattered, "I'm done hiding." The news picked it up the next morning. Gang injured in diner confrontation. Kitchen worker fights back and wins. But the headlines missed the point. Because it wasn't just about knives. It was about a soul that refused to stay small. It was about a woman who discovered she didn't need permission to take up space. The diner reopened 2 weeks later. Eva didn't go back, not because she was scared, but because she had outgrown it. The place where she washed dishes became the place where she became whole. She moved on, started training, teaching other women. Not just how to fight, but how to stop apologizing for surviving. And the gang, they never came back, because they didn't just lose a fight. They lost their illusion, the illusion that quiet meant weak, that silence meant surrender, that small meant safe to exploit. Eva had proved a truth that now echoed in whispers across the city. Some storms don't announce themselves. They rise from kitchens, from backrooms, from the hearts of the unheard, and when they finally speak, they don't just change the night, they change the world. But the story didn't end there, because stories like hers never really end, they echo. In the silence of other kitchens, in the eyes of every woman who's ever been told to stay quiet, in the hearts of the underestimated, who are just waiting for the moment they finally break their silence. Eva's name faded from headlines, the diner replaced the broken tiles, new waitresses came, new plates clattered, but behind every slammed door, every boiling pot, every glint of steel, there was now a story they couldn't erase. Her story. She never came back for applause. She never cared about being remembered, because she didn't fight for fame. She fought because some fights choose you. Some fights don't come with banners. They come in the form of leather boots walking through the wrong door. They come with insults masked as jokes, with fear disguised as just surviving. And when they come, you either shrink or you sharpen. Eva chose to sharpen. Now, late at night in quiet corners of the city, they whisper her name, not in mockery, but in warning. She's the one who stood up, the one who made them bleed, the one who didn't wait for backup because she became her own. And somewhere far from the diner, in a dimly lit community center, a group of women gather. They don't wear armor, they don't carry blades, but they carry stories, scars, strength, and standing at the front, guiding them with calm hands and steel eyes, is Eva, not as a victim, not as a survivor, but as a symbol that you don't have to roar to be dangerous, that you don't need a spotlight to make history, that sometimes all it takes is one woman, one moment, one blade, and a heart that refuses to back down. And maybe, just maybe, the next time someone walks into a room and underestimates the quiet girl in the corner, they'll remember what happened the last time someone made that mistake. Because now the world knows she wasn't just a dishwasher. She was the storm they never saw coming, and her blade, it never danced for destruction. It danced for freedom.